This isn't something I'm going to sell right away. We ended up getting it for $40. It's small and very cheap, but it's pure modernist art. The artist was known for his sharp eye and his tough business practices. For many years, Drew Pritchard has been the face of salvage hunters, and the only person they trust with their junkyard finds. He started out small with big dreams. Drew never thought he would be as successful as he is now in the world of antiques dealing. But this brings up the question of whether a person's net worth is the only thing that makes them successful, or if there is a personal standard that they must uphold. Drew may have all the money in the world, but is his legacy defined by his money or by the heartbreaking losses he's had to endure in his life? Join us as we look at the tragic story of Drew Pritchard from Salvage Hunters. We're happy to say that we've sold our yard. Someone made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and now it's gone. However, over 90% of our business is now done online, which makes us happy. This is Andrew Thomas Pritchard, Drew Pritchard, or Drew, as many people know him today, was born and raised in Conwy, Wales. In 1970, his childhood was normal, but he did have an unusual and reverent interest in antiques. Looking back, it makes perfect sense that Drew chose the career path he did. But back then, in a small village in the north of Wales, his interest in antiques made him stand out quite a bit. He told Homes and Antiques magazine in an interview that he couldn't remember a time when he wasn't completely absorbed by antiques, and that interest was actually gained from his own father, who liked to collect old things like instruments, motorcycles, and other things like that. Other kids his age might have been impressed by clean museums and intricately carved objects. Drew liked going to junkyards with his dad and searching the local beaches with his friends for broken and worn-out items that he would then sell to get candy and magazines. He said that he had a business-like mind even when he was very young. For example, when he was helping his father fix old cars, he knew from a young age that he wanted to be an antiques dealer when he grew up. This came with its own problems, since the only way to become an antiques dealer was to first become a restorer. Drew started his career in earnest as a young adult, right away becoming an apprentice to a glass restorer. He had never been very good at school and didn't have many qualifications when he graduated. However, years later, after putting in all the hard work and dedication, he learned that there are more than one way to be successful. Eventually, he was able to set up on his own, but even then he did business out of his father's garage, where he also sold stained glass windows. He didn't start working as an antique dealer until the late 1980s, with only $200 in his pocket and a beat-up VW Beetle. For someone whose life hasn't always been easy, it was a perfect sign that he'd struggled a lot before getting back on his feet. The antique world, as he describes it, is one that is shrouded in mystery, or at least it was when he joined the scene. They were very protective of their trade secrets, so he had to learn everything on his own. At first, he was spending more than he was making. The newspaper ad alone cost him $15 a month. But eventually, he grew his business enough to have to change his business model, sell his antiques for ridiculously high prices, and even write a book called How Not to Be an Antiques Dealer: Everything I've Learned That No One Told Me. In 2011, he finally got his big brother break. His show Salvage Hunters follows him as he looks for hidden treasures and restores them, before being able to sell them for huge profits. The show has been a huge success, with 17 seasons and many spin-offs, such as Salvage Hunters Classic Cars and Salvage Hunters, The Restorers. Today he has an impressive list of clients, including the American fashion designer Ralph Lauren and the renowned chef Marco Pierre White. But is that all there is to Drew's legacy? His story of struggle and success is inspiring, and he has a lot of money thanks to his work. Even though Drew has great business sense and the ability to see the good in things that others see as bad, he is still subject to personal criticism. Over the course of his life, he has had many problems, and because he is famous, most of them get noticed by the public. For example, in October 2017, Drew got attention for something he probably would have rather kept secret. He was accused of having an affair with a businessman's wife, which led to a fight in a pub between the two. Friends before the event, businessman Janice Bin Thomas said he saw red when Drew hit him across the Liverpool Arms pub in Conway because he said Drew had an affair with his wife Amanda about 2 years ago. It turned out that Drew Pritchard, who was happily married to his wife Rebecca at the time, was cheating on her with Amanda and several other women. When Amanda's affair ended, the other women started sending threatening texts to her, saying she was the reason their relationships with Drew also ended too soon. Drew married Rebecca in 1998, but their love story started much earlier. Apparently, they both worked in the antiques business and met through their shared interest in history and restoring old things. This is what led them to get married. They were partners in life and business and never had a disagreement, at least in public. When Salvage Hunters premiered in 2011, they were instrumental in making the show a huge success. However, Drew's affair with Amanda caused a chain reaction that eventually affected many other areas of his life. As something this personal usually does, Drew and Janice were friends long before the affair. When word got out, Drew told Amanda that she could either tell Janice herself or that he would do it himself, since he knew the news would eventually get to him, and this seemed like the better option. Amanda ended up getting along well with Janice, and the two of them worked to fix their marriage and make sure their kids were safe, according to Janice. However, Drew S-ing him across the bar wasn't the only thing that made him angry. Reports say that Drew started the fight by calling Janice a coward for not fighting with him when he found out about the affair. The smirk on top of that made Janice Thomas feel like he had won a sick kind of victory over her. Unfortunately, the Thomases did not win the suit and were found guilty and ordered to pay $140 in damages and $181 in costs. He admitted guilt, but the judge did not think that a restraining order was necessary. Drew needs to have the effects were mostly social, since Drew Pritchard's fame did not protect him from online criticism. This was the start of the end of his luck in the business and in his personal life. As it turns out, the public does not like it when a famous person cheats on their equally famous partner, famous wife. In 2018, his bad luck kept getting worse. It was said that he was banned from all pubs in his hometown in North Wales after an alleged attack. The locals at Carney called it a coney. The exact details of the fight and the reasons for his banning are still unclear, but a landlord of the pub watch scheme confirmed that his name was on the list. This made him even less popular than before. Aside from his personal life, Drew has gotten a lot of hate over the years for having a bit of an attitude problem. Some people think that his complete lack of concern for anything that doesn't have a monetary value is elitist. And this is especially clear when he criticizes the taste. And it was inevitable that Rebecca and Drew would have to split up after being dragged through the mud by the media and even Janice Thomas himself. This was made even harder by how closely their personal and professional lives were linked. They had been married for 19 years at the time, and news like that could make them very angry at each other. Rebecca handled the situation with a lot of grace. She quickly divorced Drew but kept up a professional relationship with him. He had a good working relationship with him that lasted through a lot of more seasons of Salvage Hunters. When they were married, Drew lived in a former Methodist chapel near Egal in the Quay Valley after having flipped it himself. The house was perfect for the family, and the couple said they had great times there. After the divorce, he moved with his son to a smaller 1820s townhouse just outside of Conway's walls. He also closed his shop in Conway, which was not an easy decision. The store is now a bakery and general store. After a big change in his life, the 50-year-old in 2023 had a lot of time to think. Drew said he had given up on his old life because it had become too much for him. He now lives in the West Country, and since the divorce has been working on turning a 1790s property from 5 flats back into a townhouse. He said that somewhere in the middle of all this, he had a blip and realized he had to start a new life. For someone who has spent their whole life devoted to one thing, this could be a very difficult choice. He loves restoring old houses, which isn't too different from his old job, and it keeps him busy. He's also talking about his childhood and how he had to stop drinking to make his life better. All of this to say that we don't know if all the hits he's taken in the last 10 years can really be forgotten, but for his sake and the sake of Salvage Hunters, we sure hope so. The best for him,